Hello, my nerdy folks out there. Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. And today I'm hanging out with Chris, and he is a shipwright of sorts, from Dragon Workshop. ShipWorks 3D printable ships is the project you're working on now. It's on Kickstarter, completely funded, like 13 times over or something, and is doing really, really well. And the stuff looks fantastic, by the way.
Thank you. Um, yeah, it's community response has been great. Always looking for new backers, of course, but it's been awesome to see that that there are people out there that are seeing what it's capable of. We're doing something new with 3D printed terrain. I've been joking around that it's real easy to do yet another cathedral or castle, but nobody's tackled boats.
You know why no one's tackled boats? Because you never get on the boat. Never, ever.
Unless you decide a campaign around it, right?
No, that is actually a great idea. It's really cool. And we were just talking beforehand, and there are no really great options right now for boats. If you want fully three-dimensional, kind of customizable terrain that you can use for ships and boats, there isn't really much out there. Your options are really limited.
Unless you want to get into high hundreds. And even then, you're kind of stuck with whatever presets they gave you. There's no, I want to make the boat wider or longer. You're kind of in that frame of what they wanted.
So how many ships are you guys working on now? So I know that there's the base, and there's also a airship that is the base, but with the fins and everything.
Yeah. There's also a trireme, a junk, a war junk, and a Drakkar, a Roman, or not a Roman, but a Norse longboat. Yeah, I know that I made the joke earlier, but we have a couple other models that we haven't shown off yet. We also have a ship designed by Larry Dixon coming up, which will be exciting to unveil. I can't unveil that today because I don't have the final art in hand from him yet. But
if you happen to be someone who's not familiar with Larry Dixon, who is that, sir?
So Mercedes Lackey's husband. He's done a lot of the cover art for her novels. So she has over 100 and something fantasy novels out there, and pretty famous writer artist combination there.
okay. I'm not always familiar with who actually does the cover art and stuff like that. But I was lucky enough I believe it was at Gen Con where I met Mercedes Lackey, and then Origins I had met Margaret Weiss, and it's so cool meeting them because it's like meeting your grandmother but with dragons.
It really is.
It's the only way I can describe it,
Yeah, and they're so, growing up, you read their stuff, and you get inspired by it, and you take some of those aspects into your D&D games or other tabletop games. But to actually sit down and just shoot the breeze with them and talk with them was, I have no words for it, but that happened because of Nerdarchy for me, actually, while I was doing the filming at ZoeCon.
Yeah, you were hanging out with Nigel Nubbs. He's the one that actually put you in touch with us, which was really cool. Yeah. And which is sweet. So how much do you actually know about ships and boats, or is it more like a visual thing? Like, I see a thing, I can kind of draw it and sculpt it digitally, and now we can print it.
So, confession, my dad actually built ships for a living while I was growing up. So I've always kind of had a fascination with ships in general. He built aluminum frame fishing vessels, but pirate ships, I mean, they're much cooler. So
yeah, you never built a pirate ship at home?
No, I the closest I've ever been was I got to walk around on the HMS Bounty and on the Lady Washington while they were up in Aberdeen.
So as always, guys, you have questions, put the word just put question in front of it. Brian Smith is the first question that I've noticed. There might be others I'll scroll back up and see what we got there. But he wants to know, I know nothing about boats, ditto. I just know you don't get on one, or you're likely to get eaten by sharks or something. I have this like phobia of sharks. It's weird, but I do like swimming in the ocean. What are key terms I need to know for a rough description of a haunted pirate ship?
The prow is the front of the boat. The stern is the back of the boat. The bowsprit is that mast that sticks off of the front of the ships, and those are the big important ones in my mind. The hull is the walls of the ship, and the forecastle is the little room that sticks up on the front. Or the stern castle is the one at the back.
Like that's the prototype there, right?
Right.
How sturdy are they? Like to like move around, handle them, jostle them? Could they survive my children?
Yes, especially on a filament printer, and not done with the craziness we did with the prototype. But parts of the prototype were printed on a resin printer, and I would not recommend that around children. But a standard filament printer is pretty hard to break the parts printed on it.
Would it survive a cat?
Yes. It survived going to and from Seattle, and it's survived transport a few times.
Nice. So they're fairly rugged. So you are using a system called, what is the system called? Something lock. Sorry.
OpenLOCK.
OpenLOCK. That's the system.
It's by Printable Scenery. They did a Rampage system. That's a really neat cathedral-y, castle-y type system, and they've done quite a few other 3D printable terrain systems that are nice.
Yeah. So one of the things we were talking about, and so I have to get my teammates, my companions on board, but we are definitely looking at this Kickstarter, since we kind of sell 3D printed stuff from our store, and you do have a commercial level, so I'm definitely intrigued.
Yeah, we do. We've had 4 commercial backers so far, and one of them has been beta testing parts with me on his printer farm, and that's going pretty well. He's been very happy that the hull pieces, even though they're curved, have been printing without supports and as low as the 0.2 millimeter setting, so really low while still retaining a lot of quality. It's just been interesting running into hey Chris, you got to make this floor tiles wood texture a little deeper because it's just not showing up on the printer moments. And then I go back through and redo the tiles.
And that's the idea of your Kickstarter, right? You pretty much have things figured out, but now it's like getting it right, tweaking it, converting it over to the lock system.
Correct. Really making sure that what the end users at home get is going to print out reliably for them. And then, of course, adding the extra boats. But I really want to make sure that the home users, regardless of what 3D printer they're using, have a pleasant experience with ShipWorks. I've seen some of the independent 3D printed Kickstarters. The product just ends up not quite breaching what they show in the pictures, and I don't want that to happen.
So now if there's a sudden rise in pirate campaigns, it might be your fault.
Hey, there's also a Kickstarter going on for a D&D pirate campaign type source book. So I guess I'm not alone.
Yeah. Oh, no, you guys should have teamed up.
We talked about it a little bit, but he was already so well established from what he wanted to do. And neither one of us had seen each other before either one of our projects went live. So
hindsight is 20/20, as always,
Yes.
So Comrade 2261, how well built would you think the Blackbeard's ship was? Would that be viable for kraken hunting?
uh, I think it'd be viable, depending on what you loaded up your cannons with.
Yeah, I feel like no ship is truly ever, unless you can get like an aircraft carrier out there, maybe a modern day aircraft carrier, but even then, it's a freaking Kraken.
Yeah, yeah. And if you saw the Leviathan picture on the Kickstarter, we want to have moments that are going to scare the heck out of the players.
Oh, is that something you've printed? The Leviathan?
Not yet. Not yet. The new printer just came in the other day, and it hasn't finished printing yet.
Is that one of your sculpts?
It is.
Sweet. Is that a potential stretch goal?
It's already unlocked.
Oh, nice. So you can get a Leviathan. That is pretty cool. So TrueMate wants to know, how would you stat a ship cannon? I feel like loosely there's rules for that in the DMG.
There are some loose rules for that in the DMG. Black powder weaponry is in the DMG. I know a lot of DMs don't want to acknowledge that fact, but guns have kind of been in the DMG since first edition. So,
along with like laser rays and antimatter weapons.
yeah, and they may not be the best. They may not be the best balanced, but if anything, they're kind of underbalanced compared to some of the longbows you can find.
That's what I kind of felt like. Even when they released like the modern Unearthed Arcana, I thought like, this stuff should probably be a little bit better. But it's hard. Like, how do you balance it out? We played a modern game, and like our conclusion was, if you are like a caster type, I think our warlock just ended up using an AK-47 and grenades or something.
Yeah, I could see that. Our last campaign was a zombie apocalypse campaign that was modern. So
I just saw a funny comment in the chat that isn't related to anything going on here, but Frigionator, my wife changed the Kickstarter password after she found out how much I spent on the Reaper Bones one.
Mine threatened to.
That is pretty funny. Evil Silly Putty, would you consider making custom boats?
After the Kickstarter, I would consider it.
Also, let's clarify too, just in case you're just joining us or you're not entirely sure what we're talking about. You can check out the Kickstarter. There's a link in the description, as always, guys. There's a link to some of the socials, as well as to the website. The website's running a little slow right now, but you can get all the information you need on the Kickstarter. And it is for the 3D print files. It's not for the actual ships themselves. Correct. It's for the files. So you need a 3D printer or someone that has a 3D printer.
Yeah, and even libraries in most towns and schools will have access to print time for standard everyday person. Sometimes it's as low as free, depending on your town. You just have to provide filament.
And from what I understand, the filament itself is kind of like the lesser of the evils, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I just got the roll of filament that I got with our replacement printer at the house. I think cost me $20, and I printed off the entire lower decks tiles last night, not the walls yet, but the tiles themselves, and maybe 1/10 of the filament was used.
Oh, cool. So how long has this project been on your desktop, so to speak? How long have you wanted to do this, or have you been working on it?
So about 3 or 4 years ago, I started putting together a project for actual terrain, castles and stuff. And then some of Printable Scenery's OpenLOCK stuff came out, and I didn't really think of licensing their system at the time, but I was so blown away by what I saw that I kind of backed away. And my brother a few weeks later was like, "Hey bro, why don't you think about doing something different like boats? And I was like, I started working on it, and after a few months, I kind of walked away from it for a while because I just thought it was too darn hard. Um, and then I was looking at beginning of last year or end of the year before, I was looking at my terrain tiles for caverns, and I realized that one of them that was meeting up had just about the perfect profile for the side of a ship. And I kind of took it and ran with it for the last year.
So TrueMate wants to know, how long does it take to print out the whole ship?
I can't answer that completely honestly yet because I haven't printed using the new system. I know that the lower deck last night for the tiles took about 11 hours for the lower decking tiles.
I mean, the ship itself is pretty impressive. So you said there's a variation for the airship.
Yes.
So my question is that a separate print, or is it something where you can attach the pieces that make it an airship?
Yeah, so any of the pieces, like this is a broken wall tile, not quite OpenLOCK transformed yet, but it is a broken wall tile. Printed to look broken, not that it's broken. But
good clarification.
Yes, the airship panels, you simply pop off the standard tile or standard hull wall piece and plug in the airship piece, and you're good to go.
So is there like some kind of stand system that goes with the airship to like raise it up so it's not on the fins, I would imagine?
Yeah, I'll have a couple of different height options in 2 different styles. One of the styles that I'm looking forward to printing for testing to see how solid you'd have to print it, but I want something that's a little bit curved so that way you could have the airship kind of be over a standard ship just for that scare the heck out of the players moment.
So James Leslie says 11 hours. My library is going to get so mad at me. Yeah, there's nothing worse. There's nothing worse when your librarian takes the oath of vengeance, paladin oath against you. It's just really bad.
On the upside, that was all the decking for the lower deck. I'm just saying.
That's true. I get. You could do it in stages.
You could,
but then again, it's like
a lot faster.
I feel like you're gonna want your ship when you want it. Like,
yeah.
Librarians be damned.
Yeah, I know that. On the upside, printers, even fairly reliable ones, are as low as like $200 now. So if you think of the cost of going out and buying a commercial level pirate ship that's fairly well detailed, you're looking at a couple $100 normally. But if you were to buy a 3D printer and our files, you could print a heck of a lot more value than you'd be getting for just buying those commercial pieces.
Well, yeah, I mean, for the cost, it's like almost for the cost of actually going out and finding a ship and buying it, you could get one of the cheaper 3D printers.
You could, and our files, really.
So that's a different thing. Have you considered putting up a shop of your own somewheres?
Yeah, we're looking at options. Our website will have a files portal, if you will, for backers after the Kickstarter is over, as well as for new purchasers. We'll probably start looking. We'll probably start looking at doing some in-house ship sales, but we'll coordinate with our commercial backers before doing that because I don't want them to feel like they're being completely keel-hauled.
Yeah.
So I had the question earlier in the Kickstarter on will there be extra commercial licenses after the Kickstarter? And again, my answer was that'll be coordinated with whatever commercial backers enter going in. Because I want them to feel like they still have value.
Right.
So.
I would almost say no. I actually have a solution for you if you were interested in it.
Shoot.
We've partnered with them in the past, and they're also looking for people who are making 3D files. Shapeways has their own community. They're a 3D printing company. I've dealt with their community manager over there and their marketing person over there. They're great people. I don't know personally from from a business arrangement with them, but from my dealings with them, they've been really good. And they also print for Hero Forge.
Huh. I know that Shapeways can be expensive on a per mini or on a per piece print. But no, I'll look into that because it might be different working as a company to company instead of just a person asking to get a part printed.
Well, yeah, because when you're dealing with the community and the shops, so I imagine you would have the ability to set prices to a certain extent. But just an idea. Get more cool boats out there.
Yeah, we do. We've already started taking some of the recommendations from backers for a ShipWorks 2 Kickstarter that'll probably happen at some point next year. We want to make sure that our art is a lot further along when we enter into it, just so that everybody has more of that instant gratification moment instead of, cool, now when's Chris going to release the preview for the next unlock? So, yeah.
Sorry, the comments once again. James Leslie, I agree with the value, but I have to convince an angry Irish Italian Jersey girl that's an invalid expense. Hey, we're not that angry in Jersey. Well, maybe a little.
I lived in Boston for a year. Jersey, they can get pretty angry out there.
So, are you currently running a nautical campaign or playing in one?
My campaign is going to kick off about 2 weeks after the Kickstarter ends, so that I have a chance to breathe and get some sleep, and hopefully have another boat or two printed up for the guys. But yeah, Nubs is going to be a part of my campaign, along with a bunch of people that I met in the local Tacoma gaming community. So,
are you going to be a player, or are you GMing?
GMing.
Are you usually a player or usually a GM?
I prefer to GM, but I don't mind being a player once in a while. I am a player in a game right now. Cool.
What are you guys playing?
We're playing a 5th edition conversion of Eberron. I'm playing a artificer, or a gnome artificer, the potion type. So a little underpowered, but they have a lot of entertaining skills that they have. So
we have another question coming in from the chat. So I never had DM'd a ship-based campaign, but my players asked me for one, so I based it loosely off the Sunless Sea games. Would you have any advice?
That I would allow your players to have some feedback on what type of ship they would want to work on as a group as part of the session 0. Maybe your campaign starts off as a plot line that you're protectors on a merchant ship. Maybe it's that you guys want to be a part of a ship of war, but have fun with it.
I agree fully. I mean, Ted did a monster pirate hunter one shot when we were actually on a ship, mind you. We did a Comic-Con cruise last January, and so we were like, well, whenever we gather and we get enough people together, we definitely try and run games with them. And we're like, well, we're on a boat, so you kind of have to run an adventure about being on a boat. It just seemed appropriate. This is the best because Jessica, the wife here, if anyone convinced me of this, anyone can be convinced. So I think that's great that the wife has showed up.
Yeah, it did take some convincing of the wife, but she's been very supportive.
We can have our first live chat domestic spat. TrueMate asked a question. Actually, I believe it's already been answered though. But I will reiterate: any 3D sea monsters to go with the awesome ships in the works. And if you look on the Kickstarter, there's a Leviathan that's kind of mocked up. Oh yeah, and you got some of those guys. So it seems like several. Which those guys look really cool. What are you calling them?
I've been calling them gnomish bathyspheres. But I know it's a horrible name, but it's kind of what is just kind of stuck in my head. They are detailed all the way around, so they look great printed out. And you get to choose what arms you throw onto them, which is kind of neat. So you're not just, it's not really just two monsters, it's kind of a bunch.
Oh, so the arms are interchangeable?
Yeah.
That's pretty fun. So the idea is they're not little like diving bell vehicles, but they're monsters.
Yeah, little construct monsters. Gnomes get into trouble all the time for constructs, though.
They look a little similar to, I forget what they're called, but there were things like that in third edition that were like minor things. Were they inspired from that? They're not exactly the same.
Yeah, the Modrons are what you're thinking of from third and second edition, and they were inspired by that.
There's another construct creature, and it's like got and they've got like drill bits for hands and arms and stuff. It was in like one of the later books, I think.
But yeah, I was originally working on a Modron, and I accidentally gave him arms through a fluke in modeling, and I stopped and went, you know what? I'm going to run with that. So.
It looks great. I love it. It's, especially imagine, you're the players exploring like undersea caverns or shipwrecks, and then these things come scurrying out like, demonic construct crabs.
Yeah, exactly. And I do have one or two other monsters that will probably unlock before the end. I'm hoping that we get to the point where I get to show off the dragon turtle, but we'll see if that happens.
So what will you be calling your dragon turtle, or is that in the SRD?
I will probably call it large draconic turtle. Not a dragon turtle. It's a large draconic turtle.
Don't be ridiculous. Not a dragon turtle. Turtle dragon.
Yes, totally different.
Well, there was kind of a cool Kickstarter that got squashed really quickly, and as it should have. They did a Tarrasque, and it's fine. You can say Tarrasque, and you can use Tarrasque because it's from French mythology. But what you can't do is literally take the picture out of the monster manual and use that.
Yeah. That is a no-go.
Yeah. So mistakes were made. What was it? I think it was DeWald. Also, if you're looking for advice on running nautical adventures and adventures at sea, we probably have a bunch of videos on that. If you go to the channel search at some point and put in put in ship adventures or nautical adventures or adventuring on the sea or something, you'll probably come up with something. I'm fairly certain we've done like half a dozen videos at least. And for me personally, because I'm not as versed in that stuff, I would probably just deal in abstracts mostly, like I did with my Spelljammer game, and then maybe just do a little bit of research so you can throw out the proper nautical term every once in a while. You can go. It's one of those things you can go as crazy with it as you kind of want to, and as much as your players care. If nobody cares at the table, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I've been getting some questions on Spelljammer, and um, my airship obviously has a little bit of Spelljammer influence, and there might be more to come. I love Spelljammer. I do hope that the rumors are true, and we get to see some of that in an official capacity this year.
Elfbait says, by the way, Dragon Turtle is Chinese mythology, so maybe fair game. Yeah, and as long as it doesn't look like the one from the PHB, you're probably good to go. You just have to make some changes. Which,
Yeah.
combining a dragon and a turtle together, like, I don't know how many variations you can do, but I'm sure you're going to figure it out. Oh, Nerdarchy Doug says Dragon Turtle is in SRD, so you're good. You'll just have to add the OGL to whatever you do,
I would be okay with that.
which does make life easier. When you're like, oh, here's the actual thing already. And I don't know if I've seen a Dragon Turtle mini yet.
I believe there's a smallish one from 3.5 era, but it was a huge creature. So 3 inch across isn't exactly impressive on the base for a dragon turtle.
No, 5e really does lack the big monsters when it comes to minis because they shrunk everything down. I'm sure it's a cost thing, but it's so lame when you look at their dragons. Like someone said, "Look, I got Tiamat," and I'm like, "That's ridiculous. That's a joke." Like that Tiamat would get stepped on by the colossal red that we have at our table from back in 3rd edition because. Like, that thing was just so amazing to put on the table. Sure, it's like $60-$80 and you're probably never going to use it, but it just looks gorgeous. And the actual minis fit in its claw. You can stick a guy in its mouth, and you just look at that and next to with your minis out there with your adventure party, you go, holy hell, I don't think we would fight this. I think we would just run.
Yeah, I actually did a Tiamat customization off of the Maldrakar from Reaper, where I sculpted new heads for all 5 heads to match Tiamat's fear factor.
That's all. So I take it you do a lot with minis as well. And actually, I see. Is that all minis on the wall behind you?
Yes.
Maybe. Oh wow, there are more.
There are more.
And that was the Tiamat, wasn't it?
Yeah. Tiamat's on a shelf with the Gale Force 9 red and a I can't remember the name of the Lich dragon, but Calendrax.
Yeah, so I definitely miss the 3.5 style minis. They're much bigger and huge and gargantuan and colossal. Like at 5e, they just totally got rid of that size category. They're like, we're not doing anything with this. We can't sell this size. It's gone.
Yeah, that really was kind of disappointing. An ancient red is not much bigger than an adult red to the point where it doesn't justify a new size category.
Yeah.
That threw me.
Like from a business standpoint, I get it, but the nerd in me just rages.
Yeah, I've always thought that with the influx of 3D printing, Wizards could probably make a killing if they were willing to sell files on their end. Not that I want them to, don't get me wrong, but
yeah, I mean, I guess it is creating kind of a niche market for smaller companies that don't need as large profit margins, and maybe they can get by with selling these bigger minis.
Yeah, we sell a lot of humanoid turtles on our Etsy store.
Turtle men.
Yes, they are not the published named creature from D&D at all. They're humanoid turtles or turtle men.
Excellent. Elf Fate wants to know, how do you mitigate the necessary of it should be necessity, I think, of NPCs, the crew, that a nautical campaign generally requires? We've done videos on that as well. It's basically like you travel with the town. Like the town is your boat instead of like having a town.
Yeah, the quartermaster is your link to shops while you guys are adventuring. You could always if you know that you're landing on an island and the ship was going to wait around anyways, you could say, hey, Captain, could you guys go back to town and grab this gear that we think that we're going to need, and we'll pay you for it when you pick us up from the island in a week.
The Mighty Hob says Reaper is kind of a cross between a dragon turtle and Gamera. I miss Gamera.
Yeah. And a proper Godzilla.
So DeWald, any chance of getting a 3D printed submarine? Frickin' gnomes. You know it was a gnome that did it.
I will say maybe. The odds aren't high, but there is a chance. Support us on Kickstarter, and maybe it'll unlock.
the next Kickstarter, possibly.
Well, I mean, when we were designing the blimp when I was designing the blimp for the airship conversion, I realized that the hulls, if flipped upside down, the core design could be used for something like a Nautilus, or for a basis for doing the balloon. So there is the versatility there that it could be a stretch goal to unlock.
So did you do all the painting, or did you have someone else do the painting?
Yeah, I did most of the painting. My brother helped with some of it. All of the ship, the prototype ship was rattle can primered in brown, and mostly just washes after that.
So is this something that you print it with or without gun ports?
Printed the with. There's different side panel options.
Mm-hmm.
So, like the quote unquote broken one that I have is a gun port option. There's also a gun port with a flap. There is a windowed port, a laddered port, and just the plain hull. So we have a couple of options already, and it'll be up to you as the person wanting it printed or printing it to decide what your ship's configuration is going to be. And you could just have 30 gun ports if you really wanted to.
You can never have too many gun ports.
Fair enough.
So I'm looking for, you said a blimp option?
The Airship Blimp, I don't have the picture up on the Kickstarter yet, but there is going to be a blimp.
That's pretty awesome. So is that going to be the airship, or is that going to be an option?
No, that's going to be in the airship.
Because I see the prototype, like for the airship with the fins on it.
Yeah, but I want them to be able to have the blimp over it if they really, really want to. My wife actually gave me the inspiration for having one of the masts just be slightly different and connect to the bottom of the blimp to help keep it afloat, if you will. And then it's changing out the rigging to make it look more like the traditional airship, the rigging going from the hull of the ship up to the blimp. So
I like the idea of the blimp option. It is just another way of doing the airship, because you have Spelljammer, you have, Ebron, how they use the rings, the elemental rings, but also, the blimp option is quite valid and is interesting as well.
Agreed.
So do you have any crazy nautical moments to share with us from any of your games? If not, it's perfectly fine too.
We had a game that I thought, my last campaign, I thought that our ship had a shipwreck that was initiated randomly at the very beginning of one of our sessions, and what I thought would end up being resolved in like 10 minutes ended up taking up the entire day, and everybody was laughing about it for a good couple of weeks after. But we had the rogue was supposed to be watching being the lookout. The rogue fell asleep. The ship hit a rock. The ranger wasn't up on top. He was socializing down below for whatever reason. it all kind of went sideways, and the fighter almost died swimming after his armor. So, it was fun.
Did you say swimming after his armor?
Yeah, swimming after his armor, because they're not going to walk around on the boat wearing your armor during their off time. So when the ship started sinking, his room happened to be on the end that went down very quickly, and he refused to leave his armor behind.
No.
Yeah, it was very a no moment. Yeah, it was very funny.
I totally get that. So are you a seaman sailor yourself? Do you are you a hobbyist?
No, I don't sail myself. I did grow up in a household that built boats. So I got the love for pirates pretty early in life, but I served in the Army, not the Navy. So I can't even claim to be a seaman on that level.
You're like, I've just had enough with boats. I'm done. Unless they give me a pirate hat, I'm out.
Pretty much.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. We even have lots of artists on that are fantasy artists, but they're not gamers per se. They're almost like always apologetic about it. I'm like, why? You make cool stuff that helps my hobby. What people that are doing stuff tend to be busy. It's how it goes.
That was something that blew me away with Mercedes Lackey and Larry Dixon, was that they were talking about playing D&D with R.A. Salvatore and Brandon Sanderson, and I was like, oh, to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, that's totally a nerd out moment.
Yeah, to realize that some of your favorite fantasy authors or artists are out there, not just playing D&D, but playing D&D together.
Well, I did get to play with Maze Arcana and the Amy's, so that's my claim to fame now. Amy Dallin and Amy Vorpal. So
that would have been pretty epic.
Well, and it was a fun game too, because the Amy's and Satine all played halfling sisters. So it was
Makes sense, though.
So that was rather interesting. And it was like one of the favorite my son's favorite moments for that game, because it was live streamed at Gen Con, and he was I was watching. It was like we were on an airship doing like a Halo drop.
Nice.
And Satine's character Satine's like, I jump on the rail, I rage, and I jump over the side. As he does the Xena call, the I. But it's hilarious because we're all laughing so hard, because it's like, well, from a metagame standpoint, you're like, as soon as she goes over, pretty much her rage is going to be done. It was pretty pointless, which just made it funnier.
Yeah, the last game that we had an airship in our group, our paladin made a leap of faith off the side of the airship to grab a flapping rope to then swing underneath to the deck below, and actually nailed it. So we were making side bets, I'm not going to lie, that he was going to miss the skill checks and end up flying down to make paladin pancakes. But
the last I don't know. I think it was the time before that we played a game where I was the GM, and it was actually our Other Skies campaign. So it was kind of like it wasn't D&D, it was Open Legend, and it was a mishmash of steampunk and fantasy and some other elements in it as well. And the very first session, one of the characters jumps over the side of the airship to like dive bomb attack this Cthulhian like monster. I'm like, oh my god! And another one tries to mentally contact it as well. I'm like, oh my god, half the party is going to die in the first session. via suicide.
Sometimes that's okay, though.
Freaking players, man. Freaking players.
If they live, it becomes epic stories later. It's not foolishness, it's epicness.
Well, that's true. Open Legend works a little different than like a D&D style game where they more than likely you would just be dead. Like when you get to 0 hit points in that game, you only kind of die if it narratively fits, or if your GM decides he wants you dead. Is kind of how it works. So it did work out for, especially for the character that decided to contact the creature mind to mind. So like it furthered the plot later on in the game. In the meantime, his brains got a little scrambled. And he almost became a dark minion. But, besides that, it was fine.
Yeah, I've had a little complaint that my upcoming campaign is going to involve the sanity rules from the DMG. And the players are like, I'm not dumping my points into the sanity stat, so we'll see what happens. I'm like, then we'll see what happens.
Are you going to give them more points? Because normally, I guess if you're doing point buy, it would normally be because isn't the sanity score just another stat?
It is just another stat, yeah.
So normally it'd be a 27 point buy. I don't know how you'd figure out the extra stat.
But sanity can kind of go up and down a little more organically than the other stats. I'll see what happens, and maybe I'll add like 1d4 or something to their sanity stats. I haven't made up my mind yet.
Yeah, in that game we actually we had 2 extra scores that aren't typical to the system, and one of them was for you had what was called your extraordinary abilities, and if you wielded magic, Aether, you had a stat for that. But every time you used it, if you used it directly and channeled it and didn't use it through an object or kind of like an artificer, then you always had the ability to overclock your other scores, your other extraordinary abilities with it. But if you did that, it was almost like you made an attack against your sanity while you attacked the enemies, which the insanity became like this, almost like this armor class hit point system. And anytime you kind of like bottomed out your hit points, which wasn't that hard in that system because of exploding dice, you would gain permanent insanities, like flaws that would be strapped to your character, and that was like the price. And we kind of did we did something similar with corruption as well. I want to go back to that game. It was pretty fun. The players kind of seemed to have a lot of fun with it.
That's one of the reasons why I wanted to incorporate the sanity rules, just because I thought that it'll make for some memorable moments for later down the line.
So what kind of game are you going to run that's going to incorporate sanity more? Because like when I think of that, I think like usually I think there's like specific elements in the campaign that would invoke needing those rule sets.
I'm calling my campaign Eldritch Seas. So there's going to be a little Cthulhuian twists to the game. So they're going to need their sanity score.
Oh, that definitely makes sense. Yeah, see, the Other Skies campaign, we let the patrons vote, and it was almost like a 3-way tie between steampunk, eldritch horror, and fantasy. Oh, nice.
So some eldritchness is going to happen.
yeah, and I see you have the mashup on your shirt as well.
Yes.
My favorite. I have a shirt that it's getting a little old and worn now, but it's the Kool-Aid Man mashed up with Cthulhu.
I love that design. I don't have that one, but I do love that design.
So, Luck is figuring out the math, but it's already 27 points because he's like 27 6x7 for an extra stat. So, I see what you're saying. So it would be an extra maybe 6 points.
Yeah, I'm just worried about just giving them the extra 6 points because then knowing my players, they'll put it into wisdom or intelligence to,
Well, I mean, that being said, though, you still capped. You can't buy a stat above 15,
True.
and and you can't buy. Well, I guess with the point buy, also can't buy a stat under 8. So they'll have at least an 8 sanity. But then again, like you can let them take the extra points and have them, and then when you attack their sanity, and half the party goes insane.
Point.
Sometimes players just need to learn the hard way.
Yeah. I won't disagree with that.
Just take off the training wheels and let it fly.
And I am starting them at level 1.
Are you gonna have a cultist or ex-cultist backgrounds?
Yes.
I feel like I've seen them somewhere. I just don't remember where.
And in Tomb of Annihilation actually has an amazing archaeologist one. Hint, hint, if any of my players are watching.
I'm actually using that one now.
It would come in handy in my campaign.
We're playing our collab game through Saver Dice, and the art, the artist we had do the art. We had to send them some like sketches or whatever, or some things that were inspired by it. I just literally just sent a bunch of pictures of Harrison Ford. I'm like, look, can you make Harrison Ford a halfling? That is my character. So, guys, as always, the links are in the description. We are coming up on that hour mark.
Oh, wow.
Is there anything you want to leave people with before we skedaddle on out of here?
I couldn't do the project without the community. So I look forward to your support. If you guys have any questions, feel free to message me either on the website, Facebook, or the Kickstarter. I do take questions and comments very seriously. Otherwise, thank you, Nerdarchy, for all of your support. It was great getting to meet and help out at ZoeCon, and stay nerdy.
Thanks. And thank everyone for hanging out and watching with us. And thanks for being on, Chris. And until next time, guys, stay nerdy.
Thank you.